Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fire Station Building Committee on Wednesday, May 31st at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I know LakeCAM is recording the meeting. Is anybody else recording? No? All right. So first order of business, we want to review and discuss the rankings for the owner project manager bids that had come in. I know that was some, kind of heavy homework. I think all of us had to go through the 5 submittals. And I know they were turned into Ari, so he tabulated them and you have all the results in front of you. And that's what we're going to discuss this evening, how they rated, how they ranked. And I think we left it at the last meeting that we would entertain the top 3 possibly, or top 2, possibly 3, depending upon how they rated, if they came in, and we'll leave it up to the committee of, whether we not want to, invite all 3 of them in, for interviews. So
this is an initial phase. The committee has the ability to invite back anyone they want to. Now, I'm not advocating for this, but if for some reason there's a feeling you want to invite the lowest one for whatever reason, then you can still do that. This isn't precluding it. The committee can do whatever it wants. So.
So did everybody get a chance? I know we handed out the rankings. I'm going to take a moment to kind of go through them, or if there was any surprises that jumped out at you. I mean, just based on what I see, it looks like we were pretty much in unison for the most part.
Yeah.
If I may ask a question, did Ari find did a lot of people put comments in the comment section?
I'd say,
and if so, did a lot of them ring the same exact sort of issues?
I'd say maybe half of our membership put something in there.
Okay.
Which I probably provided you, but for the most part, I think what they rated was indicative of what they had to show to you.
Yep.
There was nothing that rated somebody at 1 and said, great submission, nothing like that.
Right.
Or the other way around. Generally speaking, I'd say that it was pretty consistent that CHA was the highest ranked. Colliers was the second highest ranked. In some cases, Pomeroy got a high ranking here and there. And then RGB and RTA were definitely, lower in the pack. The only thing that I would say to the group, if you want to think about this, is that CHA, Colliers, and Pomeroy share a lot of similarities. They're all very large firms, probably expensive firms, although we don't really know that at this point. So there's some similarity between all of them. So I don't know if there's an advantage to inviting all 3, or inviting 2 of them, or whatever the group wants to do.
Leave it up to, to the committee. I mean, this is a joint effort from us, and I want everybody to have, the buy-in and, for the decision making. So, if we look at the, the ranks based on, our categories of, 1 through 5, 5 being the highest, CHA did come in at 208, and then Colliers came in at 195, and then Pomeroy came in at 185, RGB 149, and then RTA 153.
I don't have Matthews in there, but he apparently did try to send them to me. Apparently.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I can try to send them from my work email.
For the most part, his ratings were generally consistent with this. I would say that he probably had I think he had RTA lower than RGB. That was the only one that I would say that's a little bit of a deviation from the mean. But everything else, I think the top 3 were the top 3. Right? Is that right, Matthew?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Of course.
My overall sense is to be efficient and try and move the whole process along as cautious, but, be efficient about how we do our business. Is there any significant delay or complication in including our top 3 scores? Because I think they're reasonably close. They're similar companies and
2 or 3 doesn't make a difference.
All right. That's just my gut instinct is to include the top 3.
Other than the demand of time, that's an extra hour,
All right.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we interview the top 3.
Second.
Yeah.
That being CHA, Colliers, and Pomeroy. Right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Top 3 on the survey.
All right, I have a
Second.
motion
Second.
and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion regarding the motion?
I think my own personal opinion is, even though Pomeroy was the third out of the pack, the town has some experience with him too, that it's worth having an interview for that, because it's important to, I think it's important to make sure that whoever the main contact person is here for that interview, so you get a sense of who the main point of contact is going to be between the town and the firm.
Okay, any further discussion?
Was there a similar kind of committee for this building with Pomeroy? Or,
Pomeroy was the OPM for the police station building
Right.
committee, yes.
right. I was surprised when like we were going through that there weren't any like stats or facts regarding this building, you know, was it under budget, how did the schedule go? So surprised not to see that, you know, in their presentation. I'm sure it's something that we can most definitely ask them during the interview, but I just didn't know if there was anyone who was aware, you know, with this building.
I do
Madam Chair,
believe,
that was half my disappointment with most of these, is nobody talked about, they'll talk about where they built stuff and where they've done stuff, other than CHA.
CHA did, yeah.
Nobody else mentioned if their jobs came in on time, on budget, under budget, delayed, whatever. And I know delays are gonna happen, you're gonna have to do a change order, changes things, and it delays things. But it's important to know, did they come in on time and under budget or over budget? And other than CHA, no one else even mentioned that, and that's a big problem. And we want to know how the police department came out. We have the people here that can tell us, was it over budget or under budget?
no, we definitely came in under budget, didn't we?
It was under budget.
So,
It was a good experience, all in.
yeah.
And we had a good team, owner's project manager, architect, and general contractor were all good here.
But didn't they just wrap up, you were on the police station?
I participated and supported the committee, but I was not part of the
Didn't they
committee.
just wrap up that committee like a few months ago?
It was effectively done, it just got taken off the
We needed
website to go off.
to disband.
Okay, I saw that, I'm like, wait, this thing's been done forever. It needs repairs, and we're still doing.
All get along so well, we're gonna extend each other.
You guys were just going out to dinner. Okay, that was my only point, is that no one discussed the on time and budget. That's, which I'm sure on time is, you know, important to the chief, and under budget's important to everybody else that's in town paying the bill.
Any other discussion?
I have one more comment, I'm sorry. With Colliers, one thing that I did want to point out was it looked like they had a lot under construction that was closing out between 23 and 26. So I think from a capacity standpoint, it's just important to ask, you know, team-wise, how they're going to handle that. Do they have the capacity? Or, you know, is this the team that they're going to put on that's going to be available during that time? Because a lot of their jobs were still active, you know, under.
Madam Chair, I suggest that once we decide, as soon, it sounds like we're going to do the top
We
three.
have to do the
Figure out what we're going to,
questions.
yeah, we don't have to get the exact wording of every question, but at least we need to figure out the subject
Right,
matter of
I
5 or
agree.
6 things, yeah.
All right, let's call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. So I'd like to direct our administrative team to work with these top 3 picks and schedule, you know, based on what our schedule is, to see if we can, you know, get them scheduled for an evening.
We'll do our best. I would ask for the committee's indulgence on this. We'll try to make it one night if we can. If we can't, then we can't. And, yeah, if we can't get, and, you know, if scheduling becomes a real problem, you have to go to Zoom, but we'll try to make it in person.
Sure, yeah, we can do that, that'd be great. All right, next steps, possible vote, we voted for our project manager. So next steps, I think are important now, so, there are a few things I know that, we need to get on, you know, the next agenda is one, the interviews, obviously, of these top 3. We have to discuss the types of questions I'd like to, I mean, we've got 3, you know, firms that we would be interviewing. We need to be asking, you know, the same type of questions for all 3, just to keep it fair. So we do need to come up with a list of questions, for that. I guess what the best way to approach it would be to submit them to,
Do that.
right?
We could do a brainstorm here if everyone wants to send me a list of three or four questions they want to talk about. And hopefully we'll have a fair amount of overlap, so we won't have 30 questions for them.
So, let's say that, by, just pulling up my calendar.
If it's easier, I can send the questions that we sent out for the police station, and then everybody can look at that and see
Yeah.
what kind of questions we'd be looking for.
That would be helpful, Nate.
At least, and then you can build off of that.
That'd be very helpful. All right, so, it's the 31st now. Do you want to just say,
And the next week.
yeah, the 9th, Friday the 9th?
For a deadline?
Yep,
Just submit the questions.
submit the questions, through the town
Depending on Nate.
administrator.
Nate gets it done, then yeah, we can do it.
I'll send that out.
You'll send that out tomorrow, or no, we'll probably get it this morning, you know?
Phone just bing.
Excuse me, give me a sense of what those questions look like. Was it a long list of questions? Was it
No,
just-
relatively short list, maybe 10 or 15 questions.
So I think what we ought to do is ask them to give a presentation, because I really like it. I like to see how well organized the candidates are. And I don't want to spend time prepping them with questions. I want them to show me what they can present, what they can bring to us. So, my suggestion would be that we give them, say it's like an hour or whatever, we give them, 20 minutes or so to, 20, 30 minutes to do a presentation. And the remaining time we can ask questions. And, if the questions, it can go either way. We can give them the questions ahead of time, which I probably wouldn't want to do. I want to see what they present. But then we can see what they've answered, what they haven't answered. We can jump in as we go, as follow-up. Does that make sense to everybody?
So you say give each person a 20-minute presentation.
For your presentation, then we'll follow on with questions.
With the questions,
With the questions, and if they,
So you look at like, I figure a half hour per person, so it's about.
maybe 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
45
just to be
minutes.
safe, yeah. And that way you got time for the next one to come through.
Yeah, and we'll
All
work
in the
on
same
that, we'll
night?
work
We're
on
gonna
the
do-
timeframe.
We're gonna do them all on the same night?
I think that would be helpful
I'd like
for
to.
all of us.
It just helps, because then you forget what things from week to week. At least I do.
Do we have to start at 6:30? Can we make it a little earlier?
I don't know, you'll come from
I
Boston.
struggle to get
right?
here for now.
We do, okay. All right, so 6:30's got to be then. That's going to be a bit of a challenge, because I'll make up for a long night.
Right.
But
Unless you're gonna do it on a weekend, it's gonna be tough.
could do that. I mean, I don't love it.
I mean,
I
we,
prefer not.
I know we tried to stay, to stay away from
7 days
Saturday
in a week.
mornings, but,
Saturdays are out for me.
they're off.
Saturday I'm out, yeah.
Okay.
Could split it up to one night, one the following night. We do like
Yeah.
a Wednesday, Thursday.
Could do that.
Possibly.
Whatever you guys want to do.
Well, you're looking at, if we did each one 45 minutes, you're talking about, maybe two and a half hour meeting.
Well, that's a good point, Larry, because if we're doing 45 minutes each, it's not going to take us 3 hours. It's going to take us more like maybe 2.5.
Right.
Yeah, so.
So it's like,
6:30
it's
to
like
9.
budget meetings.
6:30 to 9, yeah.
So the target will be to try to schedule all three, in the same evening, starting at 6:30 PM. And, we'll explain that we'll be interviewing three, firms for that evening. So we'll be, pretty tight on our schedule, but,
It is my experience in these cases that they're going to be anxious for the work. So if you tell them this is when the date's going to be, and that's what they'll do, they'll make it work. So if we have a date that we all want to go with, maybe first and second choice, that way we can just nail them down.
because we did say that the second and fourth, Wednesdays worked for everybody,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
All right, so the second is the 14th, which I think is a little tight.
Yeah.
Which would put us into the 28th.
yeah.
I don't think I'm here.
I'm not here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Katie.
I would be.
I think I'm away then too.
All right, what about the 21st is the third Wednesday?
Fine, by me.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Everybody else, we're good?
June 21st, right? Yep, I'm here.
All right, so let's do that. $6:30. Just killed our next agenda item. I was trying to prolong this agenda so we could at least get, take an hour. But,
You don't need to.
We'll make up for it in the interviews.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Just means we're efficient, that's all.
It's going to tend to be this way, starting.
But I would also like to, you know, direct the administration, to submit letters of, you know, appreciation for, you know, submittal.
Absolutely.
And to please, you know, keep their eyes open for other projects that, you know, we have up and coming too.
Yep.
Is, would it be appropriate to discuss some, materials related to, new fire station construction that, Captain McCullough provided to me? If I can make it available, like virtually, have people look at it on their own.
And go ahead and share it, yeah.
You can share it.
Just
that's
share
okay.
it to the committee would be fine, yeah. I don't have.
Okay.
I'm going to refrain from sending letters to anybody yet. Just to make sure the committee has maximum options available. So I'll wait on sending anything to anybody until we know what we're doing, until we make a decision. That's all right. Just to be safe, just, you know.
Excuse me, Chief, you said send an email about material, what do you mean, suggest a building material? Or?
No, Captain McCullough attended a new fire station construction conference in St. Louis. He sent some information back to me, all the PowerPoints and things like that.
Materials about.
Yeah, there was a lot of good information about, working with, you know, design consultants and, you know, options and planning to get a station that fits what your needs are. And, you know, one of the challenges I always run into in my regular career is staying on schedule and making sure that the designer's getting good consistent information all the time, so he marches along and doesn't wind up on a lot of dead ends, because, you know, you wind up, you know, essentially, the designers don't work for hard money. It's not like a lump sum price to design the building. It's like hiring an attorney, you know, so they rack up hours, and if they're on a wild goose chase, it costs money. And it also, it impacts the schedule, which right now in the environment that we have, every month that things slows down, the price goes up a little more. So as part of cost containment is to try to keep this process moving as fast as you can without shortcutting things. But there was a lot of good information in there, and everybody could definitely learn from it, just reading through the PowerPoints and things like that.
No, I think that's fantastic.
Sure,
I'm glad you brought it up.
That's great.
You know,
Thank you.
definitely. Any information that we can, you know, educate ourselves on just empowers us even more to, you know, be able to contribute. So I think that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so next agenda items, obviously the next agenda will be interviewing. But from there, I would like to say that once we select and vote for our OPM, I would like to, I know we've had an opportunity or invitation from other stations, you know, through the fire chief for us to visit and just take a look at some construction that they've, you know, just completed. I'd like this committee to go on a field trip with, you know, the OPM to at least, you know, take a look at it, because I'd like to see something firsthand.
I think it's really important for the OPM to get a sense of what we're looking at too. Yeah.
You want to have as much ideas for them before we get into the process.
Right.
And change orders are a problem. Higher expense, delays.
And
I know you don't want to see Carver, but I want to see Carver.
No,
I know what you mean by it. It's a beautiful building, it is, and I think it's not a bad thing to get some reference from it.
you know, it's not, I'm not gonna run the tour, like, it's not gonna be, you know, we're gonna go where I say. It's gonna, if you guys have, fire stations that with chiefs outside of my network, I'll reach out to them, connect with them, and nobody's gonna say no to us. They better not.
I mean, my connections are out in Southwick, when I drive to Southwick. That's a boss.
I guess, how do you organize the requests? I mean, I know what's new out there, but if somebody has a station in mind, that they want to see,
I would make a suggestion here. My suggestion is that we bring on the OPM. The OPM, assuming we hire the right one, is going to take some time to understand what it is that we're looking for and what our resources look like, what we consider affordable, what our objectives are. And the OPM will make some suggestions as well, and so what are good analogs to look at. So I think that'll be a process that we do in partnership with the OPM as we go along.
And one of the other, topics that, we are gonna have to really look into is actually where the location, the potential location is for this. We've had our, So Protected our feasibility study and had come up with, a couple of recommendations. And I think, it's not just, us saying, oh yeah, it's gonna be at this site. I think there's a little bit more involved. Two of the sites are located on, the Lakeville, Ted Williams camp, and that involves, conversations with our Parks Commission. So those are the kind of things that we're gonna have to, bring together at some point, rather sooner than later, because we're certainly not gonna get into the design stage, designing a facility with no site in mind. There's things to be involved, so,
And the third location?
was
Placement, where it's at?
where it's at, the current location, but there was, we've had some, other discussions on, what, if it's a viable option or not a viable option, and, to me, there was no, like, definitive answer, as to why we couldn't rebuild there, but there are some strong concerns why we couldn't build there, and one is the flood zone being one, and the other one is the, what is it, the water?
Septic.
The septic system, being there too. But, so whatever, this committee decides, for the location
This has
is,
to be a very extensive conversation with the Board of Health.
What's the land next to, it says whatever, 6.5 acres, said this, been there as long as I
yeah.
can remember. What is that land? Anybody know?
I think it's owned by, is it the Savas family?
I thought it was, yeah. Unless I'm wrong.
I've heard two things.
It was.
I've heard it was owned by Savas, but I also heard it was part of the sale for
It was.
the,
okay.
It was part of the sale with the plaza.
yeah.
Okay, so
But there's, again, there's, I think it's 5.8 acres, right?
6.5 acres or something like that, I don't know, I just see the sign, I remember, and I always said,
Right.
why don't we put something, but you're still running into the same issue with the flood zone, you're still, putting a traffic light out to stop traffic when they have to, leave the building, which blows my mind, there isn't already one there, I can't even wrap my head around that. There were concerns there, and I thought what they had in the feasibility study was pretty good location. Did you have, Chief, do you have issues with it other than maybe timing to potential issues to schools or anything?
Of course, wherever you put a fire station, you're always concerned about response time. I think it's the location that was recommended took that into account. I think the building on existing property, it was more about the cost of it, the cost benefit of it was going to be like, I think what they submitted was that was the most expensive option to bring it up to be what a 40-year fire station, to make it something that's OSHA compliant, make it something that suits our needs. And we did a good job of outlining what we saw, what we pictured as a fire station, what needed to happen, and it was the most expensive option. That's why they didn't recommend it. That was my understanding of the whole process.
They didn't recommend
The current location for a new
location.
Yeah,
facility.
because it was the most expensive option.
Would that heavily, impact your ability to work out of that fire station while they were constructing something there?
Yeah, we would have to take that, we would have to engineer something where we could have alternate quarters, and apparatus that you climate control, so it would narrow down the months that you could actually perform the work. It was very complicated, kind of convoluted process.
But this is a discussion that, I think we'll have to put on, an agenda, because that's, once this committee, we move things forward, we're going to be, focusing on a location, but we need to make sure that that's all flushed out, for all of us, so.
A couple of things I learned at the conference I was at was a good rule of thumb. You need an acre of land for every 5,000 square feet of building you're going to build for a fire station. And it's wise to get your architect on board before you finalize a site, because it'll help you to make sure that the
Yes.
site's going to work and things like that.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely,
Yep,
I'm surprised how many sites don't work.
yeah, definitely.
agreed.
I think job one after hiring the OPM is getting the architect on board.
Would agree.
Absolutely right.
Madam Chair, one question on the architect. Is that a process that, I know you have to have the OPM on first, but there's a certain amount of time that you gotta advertise and then go out and get proposals?
Same procurement requirements.
Same process.
The difference will be that the OPM will be able to help us in terms of putting together the procurement for the architect.
Okay. So you can't do it in parallel, is what you're saying?
Yeah, the technical aspects to a procurement for an architect, it's useful to have an OPM in place. So,
Good question, though.
but it'll expedite, it'll be probably more expeditious. It's just because, based on my experience in the past, right, don't you think, Nate, usually OPM, you can get that moving fast. Yeah.
Question?
Yeah.
Let's say we are able to narrow down an OPM this in June or July or August, whenever we finalize this. You won't have any money to pay them initially, or will we?
No, we do.
We do?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was appropriated through the, by town meeting, the capital budget last
Okay.
fall. We have enough to get, we have enough, we hope we have enough. We have enough that's intended to get us to schematic design.
Got it.
So that when we go to town meeting with the actual project, we have pretty pictures to show and
Oh,
things like that,
excellent.
yeah.
All right. All right, so we have our next meeting scheduled. And if there's anything that comes up, in the meantime, you can, send it through Ari, myself, Christina, if you have any questions. But, anybody have anything else before we adjourn? We are so on task. Just wait. Some of those meetings will be much longer, but, all right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So.
We adjourn at 6:57.